Before we get into today's show, I wanted to thank you so much for being a listener of our podcast, the CTO Studio. We wanted to invite you to come to San Diego, October 25 and 26. We're going to grab a whole bunch of CTOs from around the world to spend time together. 2 jam-packed days, leadership, technology, innovation. We have a special surprise for you. Coupon code for the CTO Studio listeners. The coupon code is the CTO Studio. Just go to our conference website, o111conf.com, and get your tickets. And we'll see you soon. Please come, say hi. Bye. Welcome to this week's CTO Studio. I have a fascinating conversation with Andy Ballester, CTO and co-founder of GoFundMe. Amazing moment that they reached in their company where they both decided to leave. So check it out.
Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Welcome to the CTO Studio. I'm your host, Etienne de Bruin. The CTO Studio is where we chat with CTOs building amazing products with incredible teams. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Andy Ballester, welcome to the CTO Studio.
Thanks for having me.
Do you have any idea what this is about?
I've listened to one or two, so...
thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up, yeah. I love technology.
Well, like, I ask my son when he likes or dislikes something to just show me this or this or this.
Oh, yeah. No, thumbs up.
Thank
I like
you.
talking about technology, and I love that you have non-technical people that add to technology and innovation on there, too, and I think it's all part of the process.
Yeah. I love... I basically just ask myself, what are the conversations I want to have?
Mm-hmm.
And not try and imagine what I think people would want to hear.
Nice.
Just having chats.
All right.
So you just told me everything about New Jersey.
It wasn't a very long conversation.
Is there a part... So I now know that the capital is Trenton.
Yep.
Is it Trenton, Ohio?
Trenton, Ohio.
That is a foreigner joke.
Okay.
Is there any other city in New Jersey that's worth mentioning?
Yeah. I mean, like, I have a ton of friends just over the river from Manhattan, Jersey City.
So the town that you grew up in was?
I grew up all over the place, but let's just call it Princeton and then Allendale, New Jersey. So 2 main places, let's say.
And how many? I could probably search this on Wiki, but how many people roughly in the state?
Oh, that I don't know.
Is it like more than 1 million people?
Oh, definitely.
Is it like more than 10 million people?
Yeah, I mean, we have the highest population density of any state in all of America.
Now that's incredible.
Yeah.
My wife and I recently went to Utah with our kids, and we found out that whole state only has 1.2 million people.
Wow, that's low. That's roughly the size of San Diego County.
That's crazy. So you co-founded this little company called GoFundMe.
Yep. With my co-founder, Brad. It was an awesome experience. And
you founded it as you were the CTO?
That's right.
And so you just started coding it.
Yeah. And so, when Brad and I started GoFundMe, we had met at a startup here in San Diego. He went off to do a couple different startups up in LA. So we were geographically disparate when we started the company, but we had built a lot of product together, and we knew that if we came up with the right idea that felt natural to us and something that people would use, then we could build something interesting together. So
you're saying relationally, you guys knew you could work together.
Yeah.
You just had to find something to work on.
And that was a big part of my startup experience, is finding those people that you can be in the trenches with and work extremely long hours, extremely hard, not kill each other, have a meaningful collaboration. And something that interested us at the time was a notion of saving and helping people save for things that they wanted or things they needed. And we call that original product Coin Piggy. And in building out, some of the fintech on paper, we found out that if we had people saving on these online merchant accounts, PayPal was really the only game in town at the time to build this technology on. It's almost like a savings account with a negative 3% interest. So out of the gate, it's a pretty bad product. But in doing that, we had all these use cases where I'm going to help you save up for a TV as a product. You have to be able to, or we thought through the use case that, maybe your aunt wants to kick in $20 for your birthday towards this TV. And so that social aspect was very interesting to us. And that use case alone kind of sparked something. And we started talking about, all right, well, forget, you trying to save up for what you wanted. What could you save up for socially? And we kind of backed into this idea of personal fundraising. And we built out a product over the next 6 months called Create a Fund. That was the natural predecessor of GoFundMe. And for 2 years, we were Create a Fund and just trying to find that product market fit, trying to figure out how do we explain this product to people, because it was a foreign concept. It's internet, it's money, a lot of anxiety.
And no one else was doing anything like this, right?
No, we didn't know about Kickstarter. They had just started in 2007 at the time. But then later we found out about Kickstarter. But at the same time, it's a very different project. What they were doing was product-based and saving up for really it kind of end running around the fact that you could help startups and products get live and do it in a non-equity way. And we had a lot of respect for them once we saw what they were up to. It was so fascinating to us. And I think we owe a lot of the initial easing of the use case in society to Kickstarter going out there and doing some things, because there were some really interesting viral Kickstarter campaigns early on.
Yeah, and so Kickstarter basically educating the market and GoFundMe benefiting from that to a degree.
Yeah, to some extent.
Yeah.
And we can never really figure out what that is, but both of us together and the other people that ended up competing with us in this space early on.
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. Later on, Give Forward, all these other crowd rising things.
This is GoFundMe. I remember I was in a band and we always had to decide how we were going to fund our tours.
Yeah.
And GoFundMe was the one that wouldn't release the funds until you reached a target.
No.
Is that my memory?
So Kickstarter is what we call the all or nothing type of.
So unless you reach
campaign.
The goal.
Yes.
With I remember Indiegogo would release the funds regardless.
Indiegogo had a hybrid model because they were trying to straddle that space between personal fundraising and product fundraising. And so what made sense in product fundraising is if you don't hit the target, then I can't really build the product.
Yes.
With 50% of the money.
Yes.
And so it makes sense that, no one should have to share in that risk. And I think that was really interesting for their users. For our users, if you need $1,000 to fix your car, you also need $500 to fix your car. And so it was important for us and our use case to get money to people, not only regardless of how much they raise, but as fast as possible. So as soon as the money came in, with safeguards, we would try to get that money out as fast to people as it came in. So it was a kind of a rolling deposit to your bank account.
What led to the name change?
There was a lot of things with the name change for us. As we were Create a Fund, we had this vision of people going out there using their networks to raise money for things they care about. In the payment space at the time, especially with 2008 version of PayPal, we couldn't build the business model we wanted. So we had to really go out and search for a lot of different types of business models we could have to keep ourselves afloat. We wanted to bootstrap all these things. And so we just Create a Fund started as a free product. You go on there, you set it up. It was very difficult to set up. There are some really arcane PayPal settings that you needed to get in the guts of PayPal account to
So you were doing
flip the switches. But we would do, we did video tutorials. We did a side-along kind of website walkthrough of how do you navigate into that area of PayPal. But it was tough. And our early users, I have a lot of respect for them because it was not an easy process. As we figured out different use cases, we knew we needed somebody who was going to use us again and again, because then you just have to do that crazy setup once. And so one of the things we looked at is what's the enterprise version of this? And so nonprofits is a really good example of of a company that could set this up, especially small nonprofits. They usually have a yearly raise. And so we tried to go out there and basically pivot the product to nonprofits until we could figure out the rest of the payment piece. And so Create a Fund went through a lot of iteration of you could still do personal fundraising and that was still free and you just come on and do it. But how do we build in that enterprise level? And then is a one-stop shop for nonprofits and their dashboards and all these other things. And what we found was being two people, the sales cycle for a nonprofit is very difficult. Goodness. And it was something that was unsustainable for us. What we got really excited about was when PayPal released their PayPal X APIs. And that was around 2010. And so in preparation for, this was the first time we were going to build a real sustainable business model around the idea of personal fundraising, because you could split payments. And so it would be very painless for people to also pay us as the company something. The setup was supposed to be easier for that merchant account on the back end. And it was a little bit easier, but it still had a lot of pain points for the users. So leading up to that launch of the PayPal X APIs, we said, hey, the product as it stands now, we've iterated too far away from where we wanted to be and it's not really working. Instead of trying to pare down and do feature toggling and stuff like that, let's use what we learned, because we did have a bunch of users on Create a Fund doing what we wanted to do. Let's take their feedback. Let's see what they had pain points in just on our side of the product. And let's rebuild, rebrand, clean it up, and make it this perfect streamlined funnel just for this use case. And so it made sense for us because it looked so different afterwards to just go back out there and say, hey, now we're GoFundMe. This is the product and this is our vision.
Amazing. Quite a lesson in sort of iterating on customer feedback, right?
Yeah. And like I even mentioned the other crazy interim things. Like we tried to white label the idea of crowdfunding at one point, and there was a lot of weird back end stuff we did for that, just trying to find that product market fit.
Did you lose customers when you made the switch?
The nature of the campaigns that we had and to some extent even still have they have a set duration. And sometimes that duration is a day, sometimes it's a month. Usually that 2-week mark is a median, or at least it was in the early days. We had one campaign that lasted 2 years, but that was a insane outlier. And we informed people we were switching the name and your data's coming over, everything's fine. But it didn't really affect a lot of people because, not a lot was in flight, and the things in flight, we just kept on the same URL.
Okay. So you basically just did a switch over
for new users.
Yeah. Did you get any hate mail or any kind of like upset people?
Not for the name switch.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for the app, the changes in the app.
Oh no,
this was great to use yesterday, but today you guys suck.
Oh no, we got a lot of positive feedback.
Oh, positive, okay, because it was such a massive improvement.
It was a massive improvement for sure. At the time of the switchover, the dashboard and the thing you're logging into just, that is what we should have been getting hate and poor user feedback on, and to some extent we did, and that's kind of why we did the total rebrand. But we always let the consumers' feedback drive the next iteration of our product, however we do it. Brad and I were the only two people in the company. We had So we were doing the product and technology, but also answering all of people's emails, and that was something for us that was super important, that we were getting that feedback personally. It's very hard to empathize with a customer and to get mad at yourself because of a terrible experience they had on your platform, and then go back and put that passion back into product. But somehow we made it work.
That's amazing.
Really, one of our first hires was taking that off our plates, because it was unsustainable for the long term, for sure.
2 questions I want to jump into there.
Sure.
But when you did the rebrand, did you also do like a replatform or like a upgrade, or as CTO, did you?
Yeah, that was something super fun for me. I think, one of my engineering jokes is every engineer coming into any situation always wants to rewrite everything. And
there's always a reason to rewrite.
That's right. And so this was a good reason to rewrite. We had learned a lot about our customer and some of the data models that would be helpful, or just some of the data models that in the old version broke as a consequence of features we've jammed on top. And so it was a good time to start fresh from the back end. It was a good time to start fresh on our MVC layer. There were some improvements done there.
Did you build it in what stack?
It was a LAMP stack at the time. I mean, it continued to be pretty much a LAMP stack. Later, we just added some tweaks to that.
Yeah, I built my company with a LAMP stack, but no frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
Just a blank VI session and started coding.
Nice. We, MVC, I think is critical for long-term PHP projects, or having a good methodology of going about adding front-end code versus back-end code versus middle tier. And for us, we wanted something extremely lightweight. One of the ways we bootstrapped the company was Brad and I would take consulting gigs all the time. And so I got to build on a lot of different platforms. I got to build on Cake. I got to build on Symfony. I got to build on, custom PHP things that Frankenstein themselves into these crazy monsters at different companies. And I saw interesting features that some of them had. I saw some crazy drawbacks that you paint yourself into a corner over time on some of these other ones. But just the engineer in me wanted something that was lightweight. A Symfony installation at the time was maybe 11,000 files. And that just seemed wrong, that the blank skeleton was that many files and that much code. It just seemed too complex for the use case that we wanted to solve. So our MVC started off as a mixture of an open source MVC and some custom code. And it was maybe like 6 files to manage those things.
That's amazing. Then the second question is, so let me just ask that. So when you did the rebrand, did you modify the existing code, or did you just rewrite? Did you do a rewrite?
Yeah, I think for the most part you could call it a total rewrite. The methodology for the MVC layer was mostly the same, so some of those core classes came over, but the front end was so different and the feature set was so different that a lot of the things had to be written from scratch. But there was some code that you could just kind of bring over. So it was a weird mix of a hybrid kind of rewrite. Everything got touched, in some degree, but we didn't want to totally start over and dev time at the time was extraordinarily precious.
Wow.
And HTMLing and CSSing.
And you were probably doing a lot of the coding, right? Well, you were coding.
I was the only coder.
You were a coder CTO.
Yeah, Brad was doing all the design, at all of the CSS at the time. We had some outsourced help for some of the HTML, but that HTML really did not go very far. Later on in the company's life cycle, it was kind of trashy HTML.
So GoFundMe is born then as a rebranded, singularly focused fundraising app. You and Brad are humming along. So did you So you did consulting gigs to stay alive
That's
while
right.
bootstrapping.
Yep.
And then did you go into an incubator? Is that what happened?
No, we never went into an incubator. That concept kind of seemed foreign to us because a lot of the incubators at the time were not in San Diego, so we would have to move the company. Also, a lot of them were equity based, which is just something we weren't interested in. We made it that far without giving up equity. We thought we could keep it going for the long haul. Looking back, we really could have used a mentor for some things, but you don't know what you don't know at the time. And
sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah. And so, at this point, the launch was May 10th, 2010. That's 2 years into this idea, 2 years of bootstrapping and really working for other people for the most part. And then figuring out what this idea is. We got some interesting initial traction around the relaunch. We got a TechCrunch article. We got a couple other articles here in town and out in the tech world, which brought some initial interest. But really, even though we were very hopeful for the new PayPal APIs, there's still parts missing. And I'll go back and kind of talk about where Brad and I met. We met at a startup where creating viral loops was the entire name of the game. And so we were very good at creating viral loops on email. And so when you think of when we worked together in maybe 2005, 2006, email, webmail, and all the different webmails were extremely interesting to do viral marketing on. In 2010, it was about Facebook. Facebook was the de facto platform everyone was on already at that time. And we thought we could do some interesting mechanics to do that viral loop, a loop by which, one person tells 100 people and more than one person comes back in as a result of that loop. It was a very natural extension of what our product is because viral loops are all about alignment. You have alignment with the campaign organizer. The campaign organizer wants to tell as many people as possible.
Yeah.
People donating want this person to get help or to move this cause forward. So they want to tell as many people as possible, and we want them to tell as many people as possible. So it all really works out. If we could make that telling people as easy as possible, then we could get that marketing funnel to more than 1.1 users in the door. The problem is, if you think about the two times where it would be natural to ask those questions, campaign organizers setting up their campaign and somebody donating, we had a PayPal step right before those things. And so one of the early pain points was you would have to put in your social security number as a payment or as a campaign organizer into this idea of a PayPal merchant account, which is a terrible thing to ask somebody to do when they're first signing up for your company. You need a little bit of trust and some incentive for that. And then on the donation side, we had to actually physically link over to a PayPal payment form, and you would pass them, the link to send people back to, but half the time that was broken, and just the interaction between the person and the PayPal payment form at the time was very poor. And we talked to PayPal about it. They did make changes, but it was slow. And so we felt like we had this Ferrari, but there was that spark plug missing. If you don't have a spark plug, you're just not going to get anywhere. And so it was frustrating to us. We really rallied against PayPal's development process, and we had them try to prioritize some of these features that we needed. And we had little traction on that.
What about, so we were also doing payment processing back then, and I have some very intimate knowledge of integrating with PayPal's SDKs and web DSLs and SOAP. It was pretty bad. What about Authorize.net or I think Braintree was around that time?
Yeah, Braintree just had a couple things we were missing. So they had some big features that
because you needed to split payment.
That's right.
Payments, and I don't think Authorize introduced that.
Authorize had something we were looking at, but at the end of the day, Authorize.net was essentially would have had to been us taking the payment and then essentially splitting it ourselves, which is a regulatory nightmare. And we knew we never wanted to actually touch the payment.
Okay, that's fascinating. So that's a key piece of information. So you never wanted to be the broker or the escrow or the middleman.
That's right.
For the fund's money, the person's fund.
That's right.
That money went directly to that person's PayPal account.
And that was important for us.
And then you just took the cut.
That's right.
You took a small app fee or something.
Basically, it would hit their account and then they would pay back a small app fee.
Okay.
And that was important to us conceptually, just from an idealistic standpoint of they're getting the money. And from a regulation standpoint, we knew of startups at the time who are competitors who were breaking some regulation there. There's a lot of gray area around money transmission and what requires a money transmission license and all those things. But we didn't want to get ourselves into trouble that way.
So when did you realize that something was happening here and that this was gonna?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, we were at a PayPal conference trying to tell them the latest round of things that we really needed fixed. And one of our competitors approached us and they said, when we grow up, we really want to be a payments company. We don't want to be a consumer web company. We think you guys have a killer front end, and we want to collaborate on this idea of payments as a crowdfunding service. And so that company was WePay. We went to their office. We were a bit skeptical because they were direct competitors with us. But we got into a fascinating conversation at one point. I don't even know how this happened. We got the two of us, Brad and I, got split up, and I was in a room with a whiteboard talking to their CTO about this amazing thing we could build together, where Brad and their CEO were talking about some of the UI that we could help them with, and some of the features that had we believe this would be a viral loop. And so over the course of a couple of weeks, we really grew in love with this idea that we would have ultimate control and a lot of say with our payment provider. And we co-innovated on a platform together. And so we took about 6 weeks. And in the December of 2011, we launched to 10% of our traffic this new idea of WePay versus PayPal. And it was so overwhelmingly better because it was custom built for our use case that within 24 hours, we switched over 100%. Yeah. And so the exciting part to that, and this was the first indicator, the next month after that, so January 2012, we raised $1 million for our users. And it was off to the races from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so do you think it was WePay's reach plus your reach that just exponentially increased your reach?
Well, they didn't contribute reach while they were, I guess honor bound to shut down their front end. We weren't collaborating on the front end, so we had to bring in the customers, but it was the collaboration on the payment platform that was the thing that was the driver. Because when we talked about people signing up and people paying, now with WePay, we were able to figure out some regulatory rules, and this was all really awesome product management, where product management reaches reg tech, and I was talking to their head of product, one of the co-founders of WePay. He's like, well, we don't need to ask for the social security number on sign up. We can do that later. It's fine. If they raise money, yeah, sure, we need KYC and all these other great reg tech things, but right now let's get them in the door. We have an email address, we have their name, I think at the time we were asking for address and a couple of other small pieces of KYC, but he's like, why push that all up front? And so that was an amazing increase on the amount of people we could get in the door with signups. Then if we could get them in the door, sign up, if the merchant account creation is largely on the back end now, which it was, we could get them right to sharing. So you've crafted your thing and now you're in sharing. Then when they're coming through on the donation end, instead of going off to PayPal and having whatever experience there, we were crafted our own experience. So very quickly we were able to A/B test lots of different types of payment forms for those donors. And we found a solution to how to get donors in the door quickly, get their donation to the person, and then have them share it right away.
Wow. So with you were still able to not handle people's money. You was, and to this day, it's like that.
It is like that. Yes.
Amazing. So even if I set up a campaign for $10,000 and I only raise $100,
yes,
as the person who set up that campaign, I get that 95, 99, whatever.
That's right. And actually, with the business model that exists today, you get that $100 minus any just pure credit card fees. GoFundMe as a platform doesn't take a fee any longer. The fee is a little bit different. The structure is a tip from the donors.
Oh,
yeah. And so that was never a use case that Brad and I had when we were managing the company. This was something that was put in later by the new management.
And are you still using that innovation, that payment innovation platform? Or
we still use WePay for our US customers. For international, we use a mix of WePay and some other payment platforms, Adyen, and some other players. But that thing that we made in the beginning wasn't a static idea. We kept innovating on that.
Yes.
And so then when we were able to, start talking to people who could handle payments abroad, we had a very interesting payment platform to talk about and to show them how it works and to show them every single use case through the product, so that if they couldn't match something like that, we would, try to figure out how we could get that feature. Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by the not charging a fee, but just a tip. Is that, I'm assuming that's just based on a lot of data where whatever the business model is now realized, this is how we're going to grow the company revenue wise.
That's right. It's something that made sense in a natural progression of the product and how we were positioned in the market and how we wanted to serve customers going forward. And so that's a decision that they made just last year.
So what happened? Where are we today?
Where am I today, or where GoFundMe is
Where
today?
did GoFundMe go?
So GoFundMe, a lot of amazing innovation since Brad and I have left GoFundMe. Just incredible hires, new headquarters up in Silicon Valley, new international presence. So we have a headquarters in a couple of countries across the world now, and we're best able to serve those populations there. We have internationalized websites. So I don't even know how many languages now. I think it's a crazy amount of languages it's internationalized in. We support people in I think over 20 countries now in their own language. So for example, if you're in France, you can use us in French. When you talk to our customer support team, it's going to be in French. The French team then gives that any feedback necessary back to engineering team, back to the product team. In English, they work as our translation layer to that population. And they're able to identify things on the ground that are important to those countries. Like in Spain, it's really important to use WhatsApp. And so that was an early learning that, when Brad and I were there, we were doing international as a very American company. It was still in English. The website was still in English. The customer support was still in English. Really just the currency marker changed on the page, and that was our nod to internationalization. So I'm extremely proud of that. I'm proud of our continuation back into the nonprofit space. So, we had tried to serve that population a very long time ago. We always thought that nonprofits would be really greatly served by this idea of crowdfunding, not as a replacement to any of their traditional grant making, but to augment that and to have their volunteers and the populations that care about that nonprofit be able to help them. And so they've done that through acquiring CrowdRise. And so CrowdRise is a great company. I'm super excited to have them in the fold.
How does it feel to see your baby be so prolific?
Oh, it's,
as a CTO.
Yeah, it's weird. And as a CTO, you know, and in talking to the CTOs and the engineers that have continued iterating on this platform and iterating on some of my code, you know, who knows how much code I actually have in there anymore. And just hearing them, hearing the new architecture and them talking about, oh, what a terrible architecture we had before. I'm like, you know, it got us to where we needed to get to.
I used to tell my devs that, hey man, it's paying your paycheck.
Yeah.
It's terrible code I wrote.
Right.
So thanks for answering all these questions around GoFundMe.
Sure.
It's definitely fun to hear of that sort of success. As we kind of wrap up, some lessons learned around being the CTO. Sounds to me like you and your co-founder had a pretty mature moment where you looked at each other and said, we've taken this as far as we can go. Was that just, you know, you were in the hot tub and you just realized, hey, I can't do this anymore? Or was it slightly more contentious? Or how did you get to that understanding?
Yeah, I guess as a early CTO, when it was a small team still, it was all about just how do we build a team to ship amazing experiences to people? And later, as we had a following and we had customers using this thing, we saw all the amazing ways they would use our platform and all the incredible things they could do if they only had an easy enough, a fast enough, a viral enough way to tell people about the causes that they care about. And so it was a passion for all of us to deliver those experiences, and engineering working very closely with the customer support team to make sure that everything is as simple as possible. It's what the customers need when they need it, which was always yesterday, which I'm sure people could relate to in startups. And it's how they need it. Like the modality of how they interact with a form is, you know, something they want to. They're going through often an extremely stressful time, either good or bad, and they can't be sidetracked by bugs we might have, or, you know, UI hiccups we might have. And so streamlining our core competencies was always really important for us. And when it got to the point where we had streamlined this thing over and over, just iterations on how do we have people sign up the fastest and the best way? How do we have people donate the best way? How do we make it extremely easy to tell people about your cause? We had done that so many times that we were starting to reach some points where we knew the next phase of the company was going international in a good way, going international, you know, by actually localizing, going back to nonprofits and figuring out what are their needs and how do we best serve those things. And so we had this laundry list of all the things that we knew that it was logical to do to keep the growth going in the right direction over the next, call it 2 years. For us, that would have been years 8 and 9. And we would have to have the best years 8 and 9. And being the two, you know, we were basically the C-level team. So just the two of us were every C-level position. It just wasn't going to happen from a mental bandwidth. So the responsible thing for us to do at that point was to find those professionals who have been there, done that, and scaled teams, acquired companies, gone international, built sales teams to help reach those nonprofits. And for us, it was an amazing experience to go out and find those individuals.
So you just decided, and then you just started calling people.
Yeah, and
someone broker that for you, or did you have mentors or advisors?
We had a banker who came in and helped us talk through this process, and we found out we've been so heads down that, first of all, no one even knew we were in San Diego. And that's because we didn't go to conferences, we didn't go to anything We just focused on delivering great experiences. But that left us in a weird position because we didn't know anybody on the outside.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to go to the people who would know the best people in this industry or in these technologies or those professions. And it was really VCs up in Silicon Valley. And so we worked with the bankers to put our pitch in front of a lot of VCs, and we found VCs that were empathetic to the customers that we were going to serve and the different things that we were going to do.
By then you were like people knew about GoFundMe.
This was, we would have started in 2014, this process, because it took about a year and a half. And while we were out there, it wasn't a done deal. It wasn't like everyone knew us. And if you went into a mall, they would know what you were talking about. Yeah. Maybe they had donated, but they really didn't have that awareness of like, that was GoFundMe, It wasn't an eponym at the time, but it was enough, and our metrics were certainly enough that we could command a meeting and actually get people interested in where the story was going.
And so did you have a couple suitors and you just picked a couple and then that was it?
This process took a long time. So we had to pitch a lot of VCs. A lot of them did not get it because we didn't have that name recognition. We had no prior funding. So we didn't have like our, seed investors or Series A investors being able to really vouch for us.
But you must have had SaaS metrics that were impressive. And
they were cool.
Yeah.
We had one graph that was
Let me show
like
you
the
this.
classic hockey stick. And that was, kind of piqued their interest. But there's a lot of explaining of, okay, so why are people raising money? And we're like, well, there's, huge problems where, if you have a car that breaks down and you need to get to work, and it might be $1,000 to fix it, but you don't have $1,000. There's this binary operation that happens. If you don't get that money, there's serious consequences. If you can get that money and you can lean on your network to do that, then you can get your car fixed, go back to work, and you're great. So there was the use case that there was a lot of misunderstanding about. And I think at the time we also had a lot of big viral campaigns that maybe a lot of people heard about, but didn't represent a lot of our volume. And so there was a brand association with some of these giant things that that happened and it was good to get the word out. Really the use case was median $1,100, median $1,200, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I can imagine how, even though GoFundMe, so the only way I know GoFundMe is in pretty sad stories, right? Mm-hmm. And even though I find GoFundMe, and this is now in the last 5-10 years, last 5 or 6 years, it feels like an incredibly valuable tool that I don't feel loyal to at all. Because in a sense, the person that is asking for the funds, it's either a death in the family and then in that emotional state, you're donating and certainly thankful and using the platform, but there is no post when the event comes and goes. It's not like I'm going to go back to GoFundMe to go and see what else I can donate to. I'm talking from a donor's point of view.
And for us, it was important for us just to be there for even you as the donor who is having that experience. One of the things we offered is just being a place that you can offer comments and thoughts to those people. And so many times our users were not just thankful for the amount of money they raised.
But the comments.
Yeah, the comments.
Comments were amazing.
And the communication tools that we had. Yeah. As a donor, one of the things you want to know about is how is that person doing? And or how is that family doing? And the microblogging platform that we put on there just to create storytellers out of our campaign organizers. People found that really powerful and they wanted to stay in touch with that story. And so, that's how we could be there for you as a donor. And then later, it might not be today, it might not be even a year from now, but one day you might see if nothing you need it for, might be something somebody else in your life needs it for. And so
Absolutely.
hopefully
you're right. You're right. So that's the viral loop, right? It's like I was a donor on it, and I'm pretty sure the main source of your growth is that donors turn into campaign creators, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so to wrap it up, today you're on the board, you said?
That's right.
And so you're advising, or I mean, you're on the board of directors, and then you have a new CTO for the company now, and you're hands off on that.
Yep, hands off on that. So Brad and I are on the board, but we're out of the day-to-day.
Okay.
We still love any opportunity we can go and hang out with our employees. And
that's amazing.
But
and what's he doing?
So we're both.
What are both of you doing?
Yeah, we're both back at it again, and building a new startup.
That's amazing. The same two of you.
Same two of us.
That's beautiful. Yep. I mean, that's rare to have that relationship that supersedes, and because even if the next thing, regardless of the next thing's outcome, you know that you have this incredible success under your belt, so you can do it again.
Well, I think that's the thesis we would like to prove, is that, that we have done something incredible together, and that collaboration can still exist, and we can do something interesting again.
I love it.
Yeah.
Andy, thanks for being with us.
You got it.
And hopefully there'll be a next time.
Yeah, good talking with you.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, Andy. Thank you. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Hi, thank you for listening to the CTO Studio. If you don't mind, take a quick second and please rate and review the show. It helps us a lot. Go to thectostudio.com for more information on what we're doing at 7 CTOs. We also have a video or two for you that could be a helpful resource for you as you're managing your company. So thank you for listening.